This is easily the smoothest league starter I've ever played. It made quick work of the entire campaign, mainly just by watering your plants. It progressed nicely all the way through maps. And I got it farming tier 15s with only a few divines of investment. Hell, most of my gear is absolute shit, and I'm still able to complete all content in the game. I just run around, pressing 2 buttons, watering my plants, and have massive dildos shooting out of the ground, one-shotting enemies. Absolutely lovely, and in this one we'll cover everything you need to get the build from level 1 to end game, starting with the basics of the build. Our main damage skills here are Entangle and Thrashing Vines, along with Accelerated Growth. We're going to water them with our Thunderstorm, overgrowing them for additional damage and an explosion via Accelerated Growth. For leveling, we will be manually casting all of these 3 skills. So for Axe through 4, you'll cast Thrashing Vines once, Thunderstorm to overgrow, and then just spam Entangle. For movement, you also have Pounce, which when paired with the wolf movement speed, will make traversing just way faster. It's also an easy way to obtain armor break when leveling, as Pounce will be marking enemies for armor break. For endgame, however, the loop is much more smooth, because all you really need to do is hold down the Entangle button. We're going to spawn our Thrashing Vines via our cock and rely on the new Nature's Archon bonus to instantly overgrow all of our casts and deal a truckload more damage. It's only when this buff drops that we'll actually have to cast Thunderstorms manually to overgrow our plants. And you can even socket Thunderstorms straight into your cock as well if you want a true one-button playstyle. You just need a bit better gear than the dog shit I'm using. Alright, so that's a bit of the basics. Now let's head on over to the gear and take a look at the build more in detail. First things first, I'm rocking Max Life and Energy Shield. You should definitely look to upgrade my Energy Shield items though, as you should be able to double your health pool. Anyways, that's our main prio when it comes to defense, followed by filling up all of our resistances. There are, however, a few interesting stats we can obtain this league that we couldn't before. First being Archon Duration. Archon by itself is fairly shit, as it has a short duration and a long-ass cooldown. But we will be able to extend its duration here, along with reducing its cooldown. The same goes for the passive tree. With just a few nodes and runes, we'll have Archon up most of the time, with little to no investment. But Mr. Big Penis Man, you've said nothing about how we actually spawn Archon. Alright, fine. To do this, you'll need this crafted mod, chance to obtain Nature's Archon when your plants overflow. You can either buy the crafting mod and slap it onto a weapon, or just purchase a weapon with the mod already on it. What's great though, is you don't really need a good weapon here if you're low on cash, because you now keep Archon on even if you weapon swap. So you can have your cake and eat it too, simply by weapon swapping, dropping down a few plants and watering them. Then you just swap right back to the other weapon set and blast. My staff is, however, slightly better than my wand, so I usually stay in this weapon set when bossing, and then I go back to the other weapon set when mapping. But why can't we just use the staff all the time? Well, that's because we now have this lovely unique Death Rattle. Using this, we ensure that we keep our energy shield recharge up pretty much at all times when mapping. As long as we're killing, our energy shield will keep recharging itself. It's also insanely cheap, so just grab the best ones you can find, slap on a socket, and corrupt all of them. You're looking for either extra spell damage corrupt or extra sockets. For the sneakers, go for the same stats as your other armor, just ensure you have as much movement speed as possible. Now when it comes to the belt, there are actually a lot of interesting options here when it comes to stats. Previously, you either went for Headhunter or you used it as a way to dump your resistances. But now, we can actually get increased spell damage and cast speed during our flask effects. And if you don't like to press flasks yourself, then you can just automate it by using Laviangas. It's also possible to get energy shield here now. For my Desecrate, that's just a brick. Ideally, you'd have something actually useful. I would, however, like to mention that it's also possible to have Arcane Duration here, which would be ideal. It's one of the Genesis mods, though, along with the Spellcaster ones, so it's hard to get all the perfect mods, as gloves, night scales are just fucking fantastic. The biggest bottleneck of this build is the mana regeneration. This by itself solves most of it as long as you grab enough maximum mana. I still run out of mana on boss fights though, as my cast on crit goes But with that, I just mean I can't spam as hard. Either way, grab these, they're fucking great. Next, we have the rings. Mine are complete dog shit, but that's alright as long as you get extra mana and mana regeneration on some of them. Rest is all about capping your resistances, item rarity, and getting as much spell damage and cast speed as possible. Lastly, when it comes to the amulet, this one's pretty decent. Your main priority is spell ranks, followed by spirit, which I obviously don't have, and then just fill out with defense, rarity, or damage. I also have the barbaric strength anoint here. It's great, but it's not the best one. However, it's by far the cheapest option, as it only requires the cheap diluted thingies, and all of the best ones cost like 10 divines, each to anoint. Hey, great job, friends. Gear complete. Just as a quick extra glance in case you missed it, I'm using these runes. Spell ranks and Archon cooldown in my staff, followed by energy shield recharge rate on my chest and ailment threshold in my focus. These are the only important runes. The rest of them you just fill out with energy shield or resistances. Okay, let's head on over to the gems now and see what the hell is going on over there. The Reap and Spell Slinger I'm not even using because they're so low level. But if you want, slap on more entangles in your Spell Slinger. Then, on to the Entangle. This is what we'll be pressing most of the time. To essentially double its damage, we grab the Accelerated Growth Support gem to make them explode when they expire. Followed by Branching Fissures to get 3 fissures instead of 1, Rapid Casting for at least 30% more cast speed, more on bosses. Considered Casting for a large chunk of damage, and lastly Heft for even more damage. In particular, physical damage, which is our main source of damage. Next is our Cock, where we slot in Thrashing Vines as to not have to cast it by ourselves, and then we blow them all up via Accelerated Growth. We also have Heft for more damage, Fluke for even more damage, and lastly Efficiency, as again, mana is the bottleneck of the build, especially on bosses when cast on crit triggers like crazy. Next is Thunderstorm, which we use to overgrow our plants when Archon is off cooldown. It also drenches enemies, allowing us to more easily shock enemies, especially when paired with the Shock Support gem and Living Lightning. We then finish it off with Shock Conduction, Rapid Casting, and Magnified Area. For our final skills, we have Elemental Weakness for bosses, both to reduce enemy resistances and to gain more skill speed for our Entangle. We then boost it with Heightened Curse, Focus Curse, Cursed Ground, and Magnified Area. Lastly, I also have Mana Remnants here. This is what I'll be using once I've gotten some better gear. In particular, I need an amulet with spirit on it, but that shit's expensive, so if you're on a budget, then just skip it at this moment. And that, my friends, are all of the gems. Leads head on over to the passive tree now, and we'll finalize this lovely build guide. I'm rocking the Oracle for 3 reasons. Inevitable Critical, granting me 100% crit, and ensuring I get loads of dildos spawning from the ground via my cock. I also want the Unseen Path to grab a few extra nodes, and lastly, Entwined Realities to save a bunch of nodes. We then head on downwards, grabbing all of these yummy damage nodes, Arcane Surge nodes, where we gain Arcane Surge from Aspiring Genius. We also have even more damage here, along with some crit and our first jewel. When it comes to the jewels, there are a lot of great options, but spell damage and crit are ideal for your rare jewels, followed by some extra damage or energy shield, whatever you can afford. After that, we grab Wild Surge Incantation for an extra 50% damage, along with these energy shield and damage nodes. Over here, we find an additional jewel, along with a great Archon cluster for extra duration and less cooldown, with some more damage. By the Black Flame Covenant, we find this lovely node, Cut to the Bone. Using this ensures all enemies have their armor broken, which is insanely important, both to remove enemy armor, but also for the extra 20% physical damage. Here we also have Ice Storm, which would be fucking bonkers if it actually worked, removing the effect of chilled ground. Once it does work, however, it's a must-have. But for now, ignore it until it's fixed. Instead, fuck off to Conduit, where we find some extra mana regeneration and Archon nodes. Lastly, we want the Resonance Key passive, so we may allocate all of these nodes, where we either slot in and against the Darkness Jewel, or a Time Lost with some good stats. And we finalize the passive tree by grabbing all of these crit nodes. Alright folks, time to get good and learn how to play the build. As mentioned earlier, leveling is easy peasy. You use your Entangle as often as possible, you throw down a Thrashing Vine every now and then, and just keep on blasting. Once you have Thunderstorm, you can start overgrowing your plants for truckloads of additional damage. Then, on to the end game. Here we have a few things we can do to maximize damage. First, being utilizing the weapon sets. For one of my sets, I have my staff with the Nature's Archon passive. So once every 30 seconds or so, I make a swap to this weapon set, spam my entangles, and drop down a thunderstorm to overgrow them. Then I can just swap on back to my other weapon set and keep on blasting without having to care about overgrowing my plants for at least 20 seconds, while also benefiting from the death rattle to keep my energy shield recharge up. Once the Archon buff wears off, then I'll start overgrowing my plants again via Thunderstorm. And once the Archon debuff is gone, I weapon swap, cultivate a few plants for the buff, swap back, and start blasting again. When it comes to bossing, however, I like to stay in my staff weapon set, simply because I have a lot more damage there due to a stronger weapon. But this is not mandatory. You can keep on playing as you did while mapping if you prefer. In either way, though, you still want to get your Archon up and start blasting. I also drop down an elemental weakness here as to reduce enemy resistances and gain some extra cast speed. Then, I just hold down the Entangle button until the guy is dead. Simple as that. And with that, we're finally done with this shitty guide. Drop a sub, and I'll see you in the next one.